The Salem village was known for their unmanageable population. They often had arguments between themselves as well as the village against Salem town. The arguments included property lines, land, as well as church privileges. In 1672, the villagers voted and hired a minister of their own, besides the one in Salem town. Their first two ministers only stood a few years each, since they failed to pay their full rate. The first minister, James Bailey (1673 to 1679), and the second, George Burroughs from 1680 to 1683. The third minister, Deodat Lawson from 1684 to 1688, stayed for a short time. He left after the church in Salem refused to follow his dictate. The parish later disagreed about their first ordained minister, Samuel Parris. On June 18, 1689, the villagers agreed to hire Parris for £66 annually, one-third in money, two-thirds in provisions, and the use of the church. Reverend Parris did not help settle his parishioners' disputes. Instead, he helped contribute significantly to the tension in the village. In 1692, a 9-year-old Betty Parris and a 12-year-old Abigail Williams began to have fits and contorted themselves into peculiar positions. Betty was the daughter of Reverend Parris, while Abigail was his niece. The girls also screamed uncontrollably, threw things, and crawled under furniture. The girls would say that they felt they were being pinched or pricked with pins. A doctor was sent to see the girls, William Griggs. He examined the girls but could not find any physical evidence of any illness. Other young women in the village began to show similar behaviors. Reverend Deodat Lawson attended the Salem Village meeting house. He was interrupted during his speech by outbursts of the ill. The first three accused and arrested for allegedly causing Betty Parris, Abigail Williams, and a 12-year-old Ann Putman, Jr., and Elizabeth Hubbard to be ill were Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, and Tituba. Sarah Good was a homeless beggar. She was known to seek food and shelter from the neighbors. She was accused of witchcraft because of her bad reputation. At her trial, she was accused of rejecting Puritan ideals of self-control and discipline, since she chose to scorn children instead of leading them to the path of salvation. Sarah Osborne didn't attend church meetings often. She was accused of witchcraft because the Puritans believed that she was looking out for herself, following her remarriage to an indentured servant. The people of the town didn't approve of her trying to control her son's inheritance from a previous marriage. Tituba was an Indian slave. She was likely a target because of her ethnic differences. She was accused of attracting girls like Abigail Williams and Betty Parris with stories of enchantment from Malleus Maleficarium. Malleus Maleficarium, that translated to Hammer of Witches. It endorses the extermination of witches. The tales were about sexual encounters with demons, swaying the minds of men, and fortune-telling, that were said to stimulate the imaginations of girls, and made Tituba an obvious target of accusations. Each woman was left to defend themselves. They were interrogated for several days. On March 1st, 1692, they were sent to jail. In March, others were accused of witchcraft. Martha Corey, a child Dorothy Good, and Rebecca Nurse in Salem Village. Martha Corey had expressed skepticism about the credibility of the accusations against the girls, and doing this drew attention to herself. The charges against Martha Corey and Rebecca Nurse deeply troubled the community. since they were both full participants of the church. This meant anyone is in doubt, and that church membership was not protection from accusation. Dorothy Good was a 4-year-old girl. She was accused because of her mother Sarah Good's confession. When Dorothy was questioned, it was said that her answers were constructed as a confession that implicated her mother. As more and more women were accused, they would confess and name other witches. This continued on as the next accused accused more, and so on. On June 2, 1692, the court handed its first conviction against Bridget Johnson. She was hanged 8 days later. 5 more people were hanged in July. In August, there were 5 more, and 8 in September. In addition, 7 accused witches died in jail. Giles Corey, husband of an accused, was also accused himself. He refused to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. He was pressed beneath heavy loads of stone to make him enter a plea, which he did not. He died 3 days after the torture. People accused May Phipps, wife of the governor, on October 1692. Trials continued until early 1693, and May Phipps pardoned and released all people in prison on witchcraft charges. In January 1697, the Massachusetts court declared a day of fasting for the Salem witch trials. In 1711, the Massachusetts colony passed a legislation that restored the good names of the condemned, as well as providing financial restitution to their heirs.